I know. I'm trying to wait till 6. The pot isn't boiling. All right. Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the March 25th Auburn City Council meeting. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo is going to be absent this evening. Councilmember Amara,
Present.
Holmes, Sarah Sammons,
Present.
Mayor Del Harris.
And I'm here. Thank you very much. Councilman Holmes, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, indeed. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're moving on to the mayor's commendations, proclamations, and acknowledgements. We've got one proclamation for Trisomy Awareness Month, and I'm just going to read this myself since this is a very personal one for me, and I'll explain after we're done, after I'm done reading. So this is Trisomy Awareness Month, March 2024. Whereas trisomy is a genetic disorder that presents within a person's cell of a single extra chromosome, yielding a total of 3 chromosomes instead of a pair. And trisomy can occur in any of the 23 pairs of chromosomes. The most common trisomies in newborns are trisomy 21 or Down syndrome, trisomy 18, Edwards syndrome, trisomy 13, Pateau syndrome, I'm guessing, and trisomy 9, Rethorn syndrome. Whereas local support groups, medical professionals, and online communities offer education, encouragement, and counseling for those managing trisomy pregnancies or raising trisomy-affected children. And the month of March is observed to encourage all residents to increase their awareness of this genetic disorder throughout the United States. And now is the time for all Auburn residents to educate themselves on all forms of trisomy, participating in helping people with developmental disabilities achieve their full potential and support families currently experiencing trisomy. Now, therefore, I, Rachel Del Harris, Mayor of the City of Auburn, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim March 24th as Trisomy Awareness Month in Auburn, California. So the reason why this is important to me, just to kind of share a little bit, is that my daughter has trisomy 9. She's one of only a couple hundred cases that they know of in the world. And it's actually it's a little challenging to have a daughter with a chromosomal or difference or disability, people say it in different ways, disorder, that there isn't a lot of people that are kind of in your niche. There's not it's not like autism where there's a group and a research facility around it. And so I just wanted to kind of bring awareness that there's a lot of things out there where there's support groups and stuff for those things, but there's also a lot of rare genetic disorders. There's a lot of rare genetic diseases that are out there. Actually, 1 out of every 10 people has a rare genetic disorder or disease. And so rare normally means that there's not that same support system. And so I just wanted to kind of make that awareness that when you're around people, they may have something going on that you don't necessarily even realize is happening, and they may not necessarily have the support that other groups may be able to provide. So just keeping that in mind, that there are those people out there that kind of have challenges going on and other things happening to them that you may not be aware of. And so just wanted to point that out. So thank you all for that, for indulging me on that. Okay, moving on to the adoption of the agenda. This is a time set aside for the council members and or the public to ask for removal, postponement, and or change to a listed sequence on the of an agenda item. The agenda will be approved by consensus of the council. I was wondering if police needed to go before fire if the puppy is going to stay till the agenda item. Okay, we're good. Okay, just wanted to check with that first. Okay, unless I hear any objections, is there any one from the public that would like to change the order on the agenda? Okay, unless I hear any objections, I will consider the agenda approved. Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Moving on to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be approved in one blanket motion with a roll call vote. There will be Are you objecting? Which item would you like to take on? Okay, there will be no separate discussion of these items unless persons request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and separate action. Any items removed will be considered after the motion to approve the consent calendar. Are there any items that the council would like to remove?
I'd like to remove item number 7.
Number 7, okay?
And I'd like to remove item 3 and 6.
3 and 6. Okay, anything else? Okay. All right, does the public wish to remove any additional items from the consent calendar? Okay. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar, the items that are remaining on the consent calendar? Okay. Then I'm going to move to approve the consent calendar as amended.
I'll second it.
Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Amara.
Yes.
Holmes,
Aye.
Sarah Sammons.
Aye.
And Mayor Riddell Harris.
Aye, thank you. All right, moving on to item number 3. Councilman Holmes?
Yes, well, I'm the local agency investment fund signers. It just says, this is on page 17 of our agenda. And it says there are 3 possible signers for the as a investment fund signers. And I thought it suggests anyway that they would not be in consultation with each other as to how they were going to proceed. So the city manager, the city treasurer, or the finance director, each could sign on their own without further consultation with the other.
Do you want to answer that question on how that works with consulting with each other when signing?
Sure. So, Madam Mayor, council members, Gretchen Johnson, Finance Director, can speak a little bit to that. We were having a conversation, the treasurer and I, about that a while ago, and this type of transaction is fairly safe in that it only allows individuals to transfer funds. It doesn't allow the funds to be taken out of the account and used for various purposes. So we did not include that as part of the item, that there needed to be multiple signers on the transactions, but we certainly could if that's the request of the council or city manager.
The other thing I'll point out in talking to Gretchen and to our treasurer is that the LAIF transfers occur only from LAIF to our checking account. They can't go anywhere else because that's monitored by LAIF. So the idea of the consultation, we talk routinely about needing more money in the checking account or not. It's liquid. And so transferring only from LAIF and only into the checking account provides that, it's a pretty safe thing. It's not going to any other account.
How frequently do you do that?
No, not super often.
Sorry. You probably have to go to the microphone, sorry. So it can be recorded.
Good evening, Donna Silva, City Treasurer. So I do a weekly review of the cash balances, and Gretchen being new, we're still kind of getting our legs under us and our partnership going. But I make sure every week that there's adequate funds in the checking account as a backstop for her to cover that week's check run. And if there's excess funds, then I would have a conversation with her and would be recommending a transfer out to LAIF. I would never be so bold as to do it without her consent, and actually really only serve as a backup in case that the finance director isn't able to do it. And in that case, I would work with the city manager to move those funds. When there is excess money in the checking account, as there is right now, or there was as of the date of my report, I would make a recommendation to the finance director that funds be moved out, and the finance director might know stuff that I don't know, such as, no, there's a big upcoming construction payment, or, big expected outflow coming up. So we need to keep the money in the account. But it's absolutely something that we would work on in tandem together and review together as we move forward.
So it sounds like there is a consultation process that.
There is a
may not be-
consultation process. It's just not formalized. In my experience with LAIF, I've never seen two people I've never seen dual authorization required for LAIF. As the city manager said, it is a fairly safe transaction. There's no mechanism to pull money directly out of LAIF anywhere except into the city's checking account. So the biggest risk you run is either A, not earning enough interest on the money that you have in LAIF because you pulled it out when you shouldn't have, or you're going to be bouncing checks in your checking account because you took too much out. I haven't never seen that happen here. Same.
Do you have any other questions, Councilman Holmes?
No.
Anyone else? No. Okay, thank you very much. Is there any public comment on this item? Oh, please do.
Yes, hello, good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Antoinette Fabello. I live at 395 Huntley Avenue. So we were here before you at the last City Council meeting, and I'm here to,
Is this on this particular item or are you trying to do public comment?
no public comment.
We're doing public comment on these couple items that are on the consent calendar and then we'll have general public.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No
almost
worries.
there.
I just.
Okay, I thought you said.
Good,
public
right
comment.
idea. Just wait a little bit longer.
Excited.
No worries. Thank you very much. Okay, is there any public comment on this particular issue of the investment fund? Okay, hearing none, Madam, oh, wait, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll move by resolution. We approve the update of the city officials and employee authorization to order deposits and withdrawals from the LAI fund.
I'll second.
There is a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Amara.
Yes.
Holmes,
Aye.
Sarah Sammons.
Aye.
And Mayor Vidal Harris.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 6, response to grand jury compliance report. Councilman Holmes, I think that was you as well.
Yes, well, the way I read this was the grand jury asked for how much the city has spent or devoted to the homeless issue. And the way I read the responses is that there was no money spent by the city to engage in homeless issues. And yet on item 12 today, the police department report, there are a number of occasions where the police department and perhaps other city departments have responded to homeless camps and things of that nature. And it seems to me that we're avoiding, while we didn't have specific funds budgeted for homelessness, the city did spend some money by having people go out and inspect homeless camps or move them and things of that nature. So I thought at least we should be coming up with some kind of figure that that denotes that we have actually spent some money on the homeless issue.
Mr.
What,
City Manager.
which item is that?
That's
Item number 6.
Is that, yeah, but response, it's response to
the grand jury.
R1, is it R1? F4?
Well, it's in response to the grand jury compliance report.
Well, yeah, I understand. I'm looking in particular, it seems the responses I read seem adequate, but maybe there could be more on, but I was just wondering which one.
Well, the police department end of year report.
Yeah,
Uh,
so maybe it's F2. Placer County does not clearly define or report all sources of funding. Auburn City Council is not privy.
well, I
Maybe not
thought
that one.
my point is that I thought even though we did not budget money, we did, the Auburn Police Department and perhaps the fire department and others responded to various things having to do with homelessness.
I agree with you.
And
I just was
that,
wondering where you think the response would be appropriately inserted.
Ms.
well,
Is there a definition of spending? Is it different? Is that why PD?
Now, this is a very confusing, very confusing issue. So the grand jury issued its original report back in on July 1st. Took effect July 1st. We responded to that in, I think, September, October. I don't remember the exact date. And so our initial response was listed. If you look at your packet, it's page 2 of 3 of the new response letter under R2. That was the one that applied specifically to the city. And it said, each of the 5 incorporated cities and 1 incorporated town in Placer County will establish a full accounting of homeless funding and expenditures to its citizens on an annual basis by January 1st and include in the annual budget going forward. So our response to that was, that's not
Reasonable?
It's not a reasonable thing for us to do because we don't have a specific unit that responds to homelessness issues, right? It's incorporated in
County.
police, it's incorporated into fire, and there's no way for us to budget an actual line item going forward for homelessness outreach or whatever that is, because it's going to ebb and flow. It depends on top of that, we don't want to tie up specific money only for that and end up not using it. So that was our initial response. What the grand jury's new compliance report that recently came out, that report is asking the city to revise its responses to also respond to all of the findings that they had in the first report. So there's 2 different reports. The initial response that the council gave has been, that's the council's official response, city's official response. This new compliance report basically said that our response was inadequate and they wanted us to respond to the previous findings as well. So we don't believe that we needed to do that because the grand jury report specifically said to respond to the 1 recommendation and that's it, which we did. But we're responding to the compliance report now, which also incorporates the previous response. So it's packaged all into one thing because that's the only way that Gary and I could figure out how to kind of pull it together where it made sense for council. And obviously that didn't work. But the city's response, the new letter, incorporates the first stuff, including the findings from the first report and this new finding and new recommendation.
Around this topic in general, if there's something that the homeless are doing that is illegal, that PD needs to take care of, that's where they would be brought in. If there's some fire danger that the homeless is creating, that's where fire is brought in. We don't have staff specifically devoted to homeless issues that don't revolve around those items. We do, as far as I've heard from the police chief, bring in folks from Placer County to help homeless within our jurisdiction with various resources and things like that, but that's not specifically what we have resources to do. Is that
Right.
correct?
That's right. And the grand jury's request and recommendation was that we specifically budget for that. And this is not a reasonable request for our size of an agency, knowing that we don't have a specific line item in the budget as a larger city like Lincoln, Rockland, Roseville, or the county would do.
And we don't have health and human services.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember Holmes?
well, I appreciate what you said, but I still think that we should have put some dollar amount based on response by even though it wasn't a budget item, that we responded to homeless issues in the city of Auburn.
Understood.
Okay. Well, I'm sure this is not the last we will talk about this issue, so we can maybe talk about that for the next report that we move. This is being submitted, or what's the process?
It's signed by the mayor, and so council needs to approve that. Council does not need to the draft letter is in the council packet for your consideration.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think there may be more movement. I'm a little bit concerned that if we put in how much we've spent in the past, there would be an expectation that in the future we would be willing to spend that amount. We have budgeted a certain amount for PD and fire. If there's no homeless incidents, we're not gonna not spend that money on other things for PD and fire. So I'm just worried about line iteming out as a homeless expense. So that's where my concern comes in.
Well, since we're looking at budgets, we could put a line item in for $1,000 or something for.
I'd rather keep it in the other budgets and disperse it as needed, but I don't know.
We can talk about it during the budget, but
Yeah.
I think this is, in terms of this letter,
Letter.
I think it's pretty focused on what the question was by the grand jury.
I think it answers the question appropriately.
I would agree as well. I mean, we certainly don't want to paint ourselves into a corner and create a line item that really isn't going to be accurate anyway. We don't want to do that either.
Any other questions on this item?
Public comment.
Is there any public comment? Yep, there's public comment about this particular item. Okay, you need to come up to we're recording it, so that's why, so that way others can view it online. Yeah, no problem.
Who displaces or moves the people that were, say, camped out above Home Depot, and where did they go?
So Home Depot is in unincorporated Placer County, so.
Okay, that
they
answered the
ship-
question. So
Huh?
that would be unincorporated Placer County.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, is there any other public comment on this item?
I just have one other thing.
Yeah.
On 103, 100 of the grand jury report, they do say that the unsheltered homelessness is most prevalent in and around Auburn. That's really not quite accurate. Central Roseville along the I-80 corridor in Rockland and Lincoln. That should probably read North Auburn. Anyway. While you came up and asked.
Yeah, that's true. Unincorporated Placer County.
Yes.
North Auburn. We tend to get lumped in to the bad things and not necessarily lining them out on the good things. Okay, are there any other issues or any other public comment? Okay, I'm open to
By motion, I'd like to approve the letter drafted in response to the grand jury compliance report and modifying the city's response to the grand jury report titled Spending on Homelessness Within Placer County dated June 21st, 2023.
I'll second. Okay, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Amara.
Yes.
Holmes,
No,
Sierra Sammons,
Aye.
and Mayor Riddell Harris.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 7. Councilwoman Amara.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just have a few questions. I'd like to inquire about the airport, since that's kind of a jewel of our city. My first question, Mr. Richardson, how are you doing?
I am good. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for the grant. I think it's wonderful. It's exciting. And I hope it happens. My question is though, how does the FFA get its grant funding?
So good evening, council members. I should do that for the record. Ty Richardson, your airport manager. The grant funding for the FAA is from one source that's kind of flows through, and it's from the Airport and Airways Improvement Trust that was set up in the 70s and is now managed by the Airport and Airways Improvement Act of 1982. Had to think for a second. And that's been reauthorized several times over the years to continue the funding of airport grants and airports in our system.
And, how many grants this year have we applied for and received to date? Do you have that offhand or?
This will be the first one this year, but it'll be next fiscal year. So we're currently under the master plan grant this year that we filed about this time last year, which was fun to work through in my first few weeks at the city. It's interesting, and that's what we're working on right now is the grant for the master plan update, which will give us a clear pathway forward for the mid, long, and farther long term of the airport.
Great, okay. And so there is more money available then for us to apply for other grants to?
There's, we get authorized, this last year, we were authorized about $294,000 in grant funding from the airport improvement projects, which we go through a very long plan to make those eligible for that, like it says in my report here. That takes a little bit of time. So we received 294,000 programmed for us. We don't have to spend all of it, and it will start banking up for us to spend in the future. We have a few $1,000s left over from before. So it sits there and grows for us as we need it to allow us to do larger projects in the future. Interesting point. I was looking up some of this earlier this week. They do $148 million a year in federal funding that only comes out of that grant funding for discretionary grants. So if we can get to that point of something discretionary, we can definitely get more grant funding too.
Oh, wonderful. And with regard to our airport master plan, will that master plan help us with the terminal project?
It will. It'll help lay out where the terminal project should really be, how it should function, what pieces of that terminal project we should be looking at that would fit into the master plan well, and what that will look like in the whole system around us for the other airports in the area.
Great. Thank you. I have no other
I
questions.
have one quick question. So just so I understand this, with all of these grants, if we are they allocated to us and we're just going to get them like a revolving fund? Are they, it's part of a big pot and it's a competitive process? So I was a little confused about that piece. And then if we get it, we proceed. If we don't get it, do we not proceed? Am I understanding that correct?
So your two-part question, yes. The second part of your question, yes. If we don't get it, we don't proceed.
Okay.
The first part, there is a ranking. So the FAA has ranking that they would like to see certain types of projects. The master plan is on the high end of their ranking. They want to see where the airport should go and how it's performing and what we need to do. The next level of a high-end portion of that would be to upgrade a general aviation terminal to make it come into the 20th, 21st century, 22nd, wherever we want to go here with this, to give us a nice terminal that's usable for the future. Some of the odd, interesting things that are going on, we've talked about like advanced air mobility that we're all seeing, the vertical takeoff and landing. There's pieces of the master plan and there's pieces of a terminal grant that would work into that to let us kind of program that if there's a possibility or a need for it in the future. So.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Oh, Councilman Holmes?
Yes. I notice in the paperwork, there's a mention of groups or associations that are authorized to use that space. Can you tell us right offhand how many there are and maybe some of the groups that use it?
Are you speaking to the Barnstormers room or meeting room at the airport?
Yes.
So we have the Experimental Aviation Association, our local chapter in Auburn, that helps educate everywhere from children to mostly grown adults like me in aviation and building aircraft. That's one of the groups that uses it. Flying Doctors is starting to use it again. They do a charitable foundation where they fly to South America or even some places in the United States that don't get medical care
Or to
in
Lincoln.
remote. Huh?
Or they go to Lincoln.
Or to wherever they want, or the organizations will leave our area and go somewhere else. So we keep them here, support those areas. And then the Auburn Aviation Association is another major user of that facility. And they do several $100,000 a year in grants for children to learn how to fly. And they'll give ratings and advanced ratings and let you spend the money that way.
It's also where we have our community meetings to talk about the airport master plan and other when the city is communicating with the folks out at the airport, that tends to be where we have those meetings as well. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, is there any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing no public comment, I'm going to bring this back for a motion.
By resolution, authorize the city manager and or his designee to sign and submit the grant application to the FAA and California Department of Transportation, Caltrans, to secure the grant funding for the Auburn Municipal Airport Terminal pre-design project. Number one. Number two, authorize the city manager or his designee, when appropriate, to accept and sign all grant forms required by the FFA and Caltrans and issue the notice to proceed to Mead and Hunt, Inc. for the Auburn Municipal Airport Terminal pre-design project. And number three, find that the planning and grant application associated with planning are exempt from CEQA review under CEQA guidelines, section 15306.
Second.
And I'm just going to amend that to you like to say FFA instead of.
Oh, I'm
FAA.
sorry.
So I'm just gonna amend all the FFAs to FAAs. So I like the Future Farmers of America as well.
I think it's because we mentioned Barnstormer.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yes, I've made a second already.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I did miss that. All right, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Amara.
Yes.
Holmes,
Aye.
Sarah Sammons.
Aye.
Mayor Riddell Harris.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, that's it for the consent calendar. Moving on to public comment. This is you.
All right. Thank you very much. Sorry about that misinterpretation. Again, my name is Antoinette Fabella. I live at 395 Huntley Avenue in the city of Auburn. So I'm here to thank you for following through and putting forth that letter to Placer County. We want to thank you very much. We really appreciate your support. The other thing that I'd like to bring to your attention is that there's been some information that I was able to gather from the code enforcement that verified that, yes, the homeowner, the property owner rather, was in violation of grading without a permit. Basically, he just got a slap on the wrist, has to pay no fines. And he's been ordered not to do any more grading. And he has to bring his permit up to date because he did do that without an authorized permit. The other thing that we had a meeting with Planning Commission, Planning Department today. And they do have a mitigation for heritage oaks trees, which were not complied with. And also I did have a conversation with Sadie from the Placer County Conservation Program. And unfortunately, that piece of property is not part of is not in the area that's part of their program. So all the mitigation for the habitat, vegetation, protected species and all that goes that their program offers to West Placer is not part of that piece of property. So now we have to dig harder to see who we can get help with to pay attention to what's going on over there. So I just wanted to give you that update. But again, thank you so very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for that update. We're glad we were able to help. Jesse.
So we had, you know what, when we were at the meeting, there was some information from the last meeting. One of you, I believe, Madam Mayor, it was you that made the comment about annexation. Just some clarity because I didn't remember that information. Does there have to be a building? Let's just say hypothetically, if you were to propose annexing that piece of property, if it doesn't get rezoned, does there have to be a building on it?
I don't believe so, but I think, Mr. City Manager, that you would know better than I do about the details of annexation. She wanted to know if there needs to be a building on the property for us to annex it, and I don't believe so, but I wanted to check.
No, we can annex any property basically as long as we go through the process of doing so.
Right. Okay, well, thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Honorable Council. My name is Alexia Ritalik. I'm the current president of Almost Free to All, which is the nonprofit that was established to revitalize the Carnegie Library. We made a commitment to the council that we would update you every so often as things were happening, and we have some great updates to give you. We want to thank the council. You allocated $150,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, funds to the Carnegie, and we settled on several things to use those funds for. An environmental study, that's basically to take a look at asbestos, lead, other things like that. Architectural plans, so we needed those for both the construction downstairs and then access into the building. Structural engineering, of course, don't want anything falling on anyone's heads as we move walls around. Abatement based on whatever the environmental study finds, and then the construction and things. We're looking at making the ADA accessible bathroom and some other features there. So to give you an update, we worked with city staff. We're very closely with city staff on things and consult with them and determined that we wanted to have the access come through the front building. So those plans are being finalized, and once finalized, will be submitted to city planning for approval and permits. And then we can go to bid and start construction. Yay. Abatement, we have an abatement contract for the lead and asbestos. That was completed. It was all done. We did find in doing that, there was a small leak in the office area in the ceiling. Had that all taken care of, treated for mold, came to the city and said, hey, found this. What do you think? Everything's been taken care of there and it's all working and going well. From there, this is the big exciting news. The Carnegie Library was selected by the Rotary Club of Auburn to be their Rotary Workday project for 2024. So on April 27, when we told them that, oops, we have a little ceiling issue, they said, great, we'll take that on too. So they will be putting insulation and ceiling up and putting all the texture and things there. They'll be painting the interior. They'll be cleaning the garden area, adding pavers and new deep composed granite with a stabilizer. So they're really going to take the back garden area and make it usable and that's our foundation for the next level of improvements. We also met with a lift contractor, not an elevator. We're going with a lift to provide that second story access from the downstairs. And we have an estimate of about $60,000, which is not part of ARPA dollars, but something we've got a goal for raising funds. And speaking of budgets and funds, we have registered for Big Day of Giving. That, of course, is May 2nd, but it starts early with April 18, which is great because for someone like me who forgets, it's nice to schedule it ahead of time. So we'll be doing that. We also have submitted or will submit by the end of the week grants applications for some rather large grants in the tens of thousands of dollars. And we have a third one we'll be applying for at the end of April, beginning of May. So we're seeking out those dollars to provide all the additional support for interior work, windows, window coverings, materials that we might need for furniture, whatever comes forward, and the lift itself, all of those things. We are pretty aggressive in getting those. We've secured some from the Placer County Foundation and some others. So we're excited about that. Finally, we want to say that all of this that we've accomplished is really because we have such a fabulous partnership with the city staff. They have been so incredible. They answer questions, they're responsive, they help us. We can ask, hey, guidance, what do you think? It's just been an incredible partnership. And we wanted to thank especially Sean Robbie, Menjel Dean, Amber Carroll, Christina Schaefer, Amy Lind, Matt Carducci, Andreas Thiessen, Curtis Ryan, and of course, Public Works, because the guys are phenomenal. And for the council, thank you for your energy, guidance, and leadership. It's part of why we've been so successful. And I apologize if I've missed anybody, but we'll be coming forward to you again later, hopefully with some great before and after pictures. So with that, that is our report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's always great to get a good update. So
Thank you.
thank you. Is there any more public comments?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes.
Go ahead.
I have a public safety comment and driving around the city of Auburn, I have noted that most people, I'm going to say only about 40% of drivers bother to signal when they're going to make a turn left or right. And this becomes a guessing game sometimes because there are some places where a turn is authorized, but people want to go straight ahead. So I'm hoping that more people, in the old days, we used to put our arm out and so forth, and now we don't have to do this. It's very convenient to do that switch. And so I'd like to invite people to use those signals when they're going to make a turn.
Thank you very much. I'm sure PD appreciates that public service announcement. I did want to make one quick announcement as well. There's an exhibit, an Esther Birdsall Darling exhibit unveiling party, March 29th here in City Hall. And so that'll be a great exhibit that is coming to the City Hall, and I'm really excited about that. So come and check it out after that is unveiled. Is there any other public comment? Okay. Moving on from public comment into city business. First, we have the Auburn Fire Department 2023 year-end report. And feel free to leave if you don't want to listen to the rest.
We're doing,
Although fire is very important to all of us, so.
What's the trick to this, Amy?
There we go.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. John Rogers, your fire chief. This evening, I am bringing forward our 2023 annual report, and I'd like to just start by saying I'm honored to be here and present the efforts that your firefighters put forth in 2023. So your firefighters are dedicated to fostering the development and safety of our community through prevention, public education, and emergency response with pride and honor. So the three mission areas that the fire department focuses on is prevention, public education, and emergency response. This evening, I'm going to start with our emergency response efforts, as that is what the majority of our focus has been in 2023. So in 2023, the Auburn Fire Department responded to 2,372 incidents. That's a 1.5% increase over 2022, a 14.5% increase over 2016. So 2022, we responded to 2,337 incidents. 2016, we responded to 2,067 incidents. And in the last 20 years, it's a 77.5% increase. So 2023, we responded to 1,336 emergencies. Why the increase? I would like to just kind of focus it to just a few items. Increase in population, both within the city and the county, an increased use of the 911 system, and an aging population. And I'd also like to say that it's not just the Auburn Fire Department that has experienced an increase in call volume. It's all the agencies surrounding us. So after my presentation this evening, our city clerk is going to pass out a packet to you. In that packet is going to be a NEFRS breakdown of all the call types that we have. I'm going to just highlight the incidents that we responded to, and then it will break down every single call type in the specific categories. So in 2023, 60% of the incidents that we responded to were EMS related for 1,424 incidents. 18.7% were good intent related incidents for 443. 9.2% were service calls or 220 incidents. 5.2% were false alarms or 123 incidents. 3.5% of them were fire related for 82 incidents. 2.3 of the incidents were hazmat related for 54 incidents. And then the final three categories resulted in less than 1% of our response for 25 total calls. And those included severe weather incidents, overheat conditions with no fire, and special incidents. So I just want to take a second to highlight the fire-related responses. There were 33 structure fire-related incidents that the Auburn Fire Department responded to in 2023. 6 of those structure fires occurred within the city limits. We also responded to 18 vegetation fires or vegetation fire-related incidents. 3 of those occurred within the city limits. If you look up at the screen, you can see our incident activity map or plot map. Again, we responded to 2,372 incidents in 2023. And I just want to take a second to highlight, if you look at the map, this area right here is the Pacific Street area. And about 10% of the incidents that we responded to fell south of Pacific Street. So you can see the greatest amount of incidents that the fire department responded to We're north of Pacific Street. Also in your packet that our city clerk is going to hand out afterwards is an updated fire response map. The map that's on the screen and in your packet captures all 100 series of the NEFR incidents that occurred within the city limits of Auburn, and NEFR stands for the National Fire Incident Reporting System. And that's the data that we capture and we report to the state of California. And then the state of California sends that back east to Maryland, and they capture all of the response data that the fire service sees throughout the country. All right, moving along, we're going to discuss our total property saved and lost. And this is a statistic that changes every single year. It fluctuates year to year, and it's due to the types of fires that we respond to, the location of the fire, how far the fire extends, and what the fire consumes. So in 2023, your firefighters saved approximately $1.5 million worth of property and estimated losses of $764,000. And just to bring that into perspective for you and to highlight how the data fluctuates, in 2022, we saved approximately $11,745,000 while losing approximately $1.27 million. In 2021, saved just over $25 million worth of property and lost $835,000 of property. And finally, in 2020, saved $4.1 million of property and lost $435,000. In those 3 years, those are approximate numbers. And just to build upon where we get that data, the captains and the battalion chiefs are responsible for incident reporting. And while they're on scene, they take photos, they do their incident report, and when they get back to the station, they use 2 sources to capture the information. For all the structure fire losses, they utilize the International Code Council's Building Valuation Data Guide. And for vehicle fire-related incidents, they use the Kelly Blue Book. And those are best estimates. All right, so I want to break down some more of our response metrics for you. I'll start by the calls during the time of the day. And again, our numbers fluctuate every year, but what remains consistent is that the calls that the fire department responds to, the majority of them occur between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., not 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. And that's just because people are out and about and doing things. So in 2023, the busiest day of the week was Friday. The busiest month was January, and the code 3 travel time was 3 minutes and 44 seconds. And what the code 3 travel time means is from the time the captain gets in the fire engine and either keys up the microphone or presses the responding button on the mobile data terminal until the time that they arrive at scene and either log on the incident by keying up the microphone or pressing the at scene time. So average code 3 response time was 3 minutes and 44 seconds. So I'll just highlight the last 3 years. So 2022, the busiest day was Tuesday, busiest month was May, and the code 3 travel time was 3 minutes and 4 seconds. 2021, busiest day Friday, busiest month August, and the code 3 travel time was 3 minutes and 45 seconds. And finally, in 2020, the busiest day was Monday, busiest month was March, and the code 3 travel time was 3 minutes and 30 seconds. All right, continuing with some more of our emergency response statistics, I'll give you some definitions before I highlight the numbers. Back-to-back calls are handled by AFD equipment and personnel. So what happens is if the engine goes responding, arrives at the incident, clears the incident, and goes back to the station, a back-to-back call we count happens within 30 minutes of each other. And that's because the personnel on the engine have to get back to the station. They have to restock their supplies and decontaminate whatever personal protective equipment that they utilized. And then the simultaneous calls Those are calls that occur at the same time or within a very relatively short period of time. So they could get a medical aid at noon and 5 minutes later, they get a second medical aid. And that would require a second piece of equipment to respond, whether it's one of our own pieces of equipment or a automatic aid from automatic aid resource from a neighboring agency. And so just to build upon that, mutual aid is aid that's given or received, and it's upon request. So for example, a fire engine arrives at the scene of a vehicle accident and they realize that they need more personnel or more equipment. They have to get on the radio and request another response. That's what we would consider mutual aid. If we respond to a working structure fire and we get 6 fire engines on the initial alarm assignment, that's considered automatic aid. And then if we look, our back-to-back calls for service were 522. And of those 522 responses, 212 of them were considered simultaneous calls for service. In 2023, we received automatic and mutual aid approximately 120 times, and we provided mutual and automatic aid approximately 378 times. All right, so I want to discuss the training that the personnel put in, and this is what allows your firefighters the opportunity to provide a higher level of service. So in 2023, all of your personnel completed 4,239 hours of training, and that is broken down into various categories. Emergency operations, 1,452 and a half hours. Officer training, 621 hours. Hazardous materials training, 535 hours. Driver operator training, 353 hours. EMS continuing education training, 204 hours. Tools and equipment, 174 hours. Rescue, 112 and a half hours of training. Prevention, 91 and a half hours of training. And investigations, 90 and a half hours of training. And what does that mean as far as the certificates and other things that go in to support that? Your personnel completed 19 state fire training courses, 14 specialty courses, 13 National Wildfire Coordinating Group courses, and FEMA courses. They obtained 12 state fire training and CalJAC certificates, and we had 1 personnel obtain a college degree. So moving along, I'd like to talk about the new technology, and the technology is what we utilize to support our emergency response mission. So in 2023, we finally obtained our new fire engine. So took delivery of it in October of 2023. And after working through some of the problems, we were able to get it into service just after the first of the year. So with that fire engine, approximately $700,000, we obtained $70,000 worth of equipment to go onto that piece of equipment. We also instituted a drone program, and the DJI drone with trainer that we purchased was in cooperation with the Auburn Hook and Ladder Company #1. They fundraised just shy of $10,000, and the fire department utilized just shy of $10,000 worth of funding to get that drone in service. And then we partnered with the Motherlode Model T Club to purchase the positive pressure ventilation fan that's at the bottom right-hand side of the screen. That fan is powered by a generator or the neighbor's house through an extension cord. And what the nice thing about this fan is, before we had a big gas-powered fan, and when we would utilize the gas-powered fan to exhaust or get rid of the smoke from fires out of people's houses, we'd get rid of the smoke and we would replace the smoke with carbon monoxide. So this new fan that we just implemented does not fill the house up with other gases that aren't healthy. And then I just want to highlight the final 2 pieces of equipment that we obtained to go on to the new fire engine. Prior to getting the new fire engine, we had a combination rescue tool. And if you look, that would be the spreaders and the cutters together as one tool. And I would compare that to utilizing a spork. Can you eat with a spork? Yes, right? Does it do everything that it should do? Not really. So that's what our combination tool does. These two tools allows multiple firefighters to work on rescue operations at the same time, and both of those tools have higher spreading and cutting force than the single combination tool that we had prior to this. All right, before I move along, I want to take a minute just to highlight some challenges that the fire department faced in 2023. And I'm going to start with our fleet, because that's what your firefighters use to provide all emergency response services. So in 2023, we had multiple apparatus that were out of service for major repairs. And I'm going to highlight four pieces of equipment and the repairs that they experienced. The most significant was our 2013 Pierce. This vehicle has approximately 101,000 miles and 7,400 engine hours. And you're probably thinking, why am I highlighting how many engine hours the piece of equipment has? Well, our response area is 7.5 square miles. So you would think that driving around Auburn, you wouldn't have that many miles. 100,000 is a lot for that piece of equipment, but it also has a high amount of miles on it, because as soon as they leave the fire station and respond to an incident, that piece of equipment never gets shut off until it's back to the fire station and put away. Now, if they're out going to the grocery store or a public education event, something like that, the piece of equipment gets shut off. But while it's committed to an emergency, it never gets shut off. So just to build upon that, our corporation yards tracks the service intervals using a combination of the hours and the mileage, and reviews that every quarter, just to make sure that the health of our fleet is good. So that particular piece of equipment that I was talking about, our 2013 Pierce, has been out of service since November 14th. For a cracked subframe, major suspension repairs, a rear main seal, oil leak, and various emissions issues. The parts that we had to purchase to repair that vehicle cost approximately $30,000. Moving along, our 2004 Pierce, that vehicle has approximately 147,000 miles on it and 12,600 hours. So almost double what the piece of equipment that I just talked about had. In 2023, it received a new transmission, a new rear differential, and had significant repairs to the foam system completed. And just the parts alone cost approximately $17,000. Those are our Type 1 fire engines, and Type 1, that's what we utilize to respond to the structure fire calls. We also had two Type 3 engines that experienced a bunch of repairs within the last 3 years. Both of our Type 3 engines are over 20 years old. They've both had new engines put in them in the last 3 years, and just the parts for both of those Type 3s cost more than $50,000. So just to build upon our fleet, the average age of our apparatus is approximately 19 years, and that's excluding the piece of equipment that we just put into reserve status, our 1987 Van Pelt. The average age of our command vehicles and our utilities is approximately 10 years old, and the combined average age of our entire fleet is approximately 18 years old. And I want to take a second just to highlight too the turnaround time to obtain new pieces of equipment after the order is placed. So to get a new Type 1 engine, it's approximately 4 years from the time we sign the paper to get a new vehicle here. And for a Type 3, our wildland fire engines, it's 2 to 3 years, depending on the chassis availability. So 24 to 36 months. All right, I also like to talk about our facilities. Station 1 located at High Street, also known as Martin Park. That station is 56 years old. Station 2, Geetson Station, located on Sacramento Street, is 50 years old, and Station 3, Maidu, is 33 years old. So the average age of our fire stations is 46 years old. So an interesting fact, and to put that into perspective, only 2 of our current firefighters are older than 46 years. Also, all of our fire stations were constructed prior to the implementation of career staffing. What's that mean to us? They weren't built to accommodate 24/7 staffing. We've taken steps as a fire department and as a city to make them functional, but our facilities are missing various things such as decontamination stations, turnout storage outside of our engine bay, multiple showers for decontamination purposes, commercial kitchens, and other, or et cetera, that other full-time stations include. We did a bunch of maintenance and repair projects in 2023 through both our Public Works Department and external contractors. Station 1, we installed a diesel exhaust system. So when the engine started in the station, the fans turn on and suck the exhaust out of the station so that the fire personnel don't have to breathe that exhaust. Station 2, a kitchen backsplash, paint on the walls and the floors, a remodel of the upstairs bathroom due to rot from previous work, and some landscaping around the station. We still have various other projects identified and we're working through those. And while I'm up here, I'd like to take a second to thank our entire public works staff for the work they do to support our operations. And I also want to thank Menjul, our public works director, for the work that he's done sitting down with us to get our apparatus and facilities needs included in the capital improvement plan. All right, and to wrap up our emergency response portion, I'd just like to take a second to talk about 3 significant incidents that occurred in 2023. So in January, we had a severe weather incident, and over a 10-day period, the Auburn area experienced 7 inches of rain. During that time frame, the Auburn Fire Department responded to 51 calls for service. Many of them were extended and required automatic and mutual aid assistance from our neighboring agencies. The highlight of that storm-related period was your firefighters delivered the first baby that was born in Placer County at 1:10 in the morning. And I was on that incident. It was very cool. And that's the first time in my career that I got to experience that. So it was a pretty neat thing. Moving along into October of 2023, we experienced multiple vegetation fires in the American River Canyon just below the city limits. Not only did the Auburn Fire Department respond to those incidents, but CAL FIRE, Placer County Fire, and various other automatic and mutual aid responses or equipment. A quick response by multiple agencies held those fires to less than 1 acre in size with no damage to property or infrastructure, which was pretty incredible. And then in December of 2023, again, we had some more significant weather. The highlight from that period of time was we had a PCWA canal that got blocked up by a large tree branch. And during the period of heavy rain, that tree branch caused the canal to overflow. That water impacted a senior housing apartment complex and flooded 5 apartments, displacing 4 of those residents for more than 2 months. Your firefighters assisted PCWA with clearing the canal and then evacuating the water and moving some property in the impacted units. All right, so I'd like to change gears and go into our next mission, or one of our other missions is the mission of prevention. So in 2023, I would like to talk about fuel reduction efforts first. We received 30 complaints based on vegetation overgrowth, and they were all evaluated. Our community risk reduction manager, Lindsay Davidson, handles all those complaints, and she was able to work with homeowners and get approximately 71 acres treated based on that. We obtained a 97% compliance rate with our complaint parcels. And you're going to ask, well, why didn't we have 100% compliance? Well, the reason for that is one of the parcels is owned by the Bureau of Reclamation right over there by Gasonia Park. And we just weren't able to get that piece of property into compliance. And I believe Lindsay has provided our city manager with a report, because one of the council members is going to be back in Washington, D.C. soon, is going to take that issue forward. We also issued 108 burn permits to our community members, and the burn permits they utilize to get rid of hazard fuel on their properties. And then as far as our annual inspections, there was a consent item that you guys passed. And that was our Senate Bill 1205 annual inspection report. So I'll just take a second to walk you through that. We inspected 8 schools. 41 of 42 multifamily dwellings, which is any dwelling that is greater than 3 residents, so not excluding a single family home or a duplex, and then hotels and motels. And we were successful in inspecting 41 of 42 of those required inspections. You're going to say, well, how come we didn't get 100% compliance? We got 98% compliance. Well, the answer to that is one of those properties was under renovation, the Power Mansion and Inn, and we weren't able to inspect that. All right, so talking about grant awards, again, our community risk reduction manager, Lindsay Davidson, was able to successfully obtain funding for 2 grants in 2023. One of them was for the Baltimore Ravine project, which was approximately $800,000. And then the California Fire Foundation grant, which was approximately $25,000. And that was for fuel reduction efforts at Borland Avenue, or between Borland Avenue and Jordan Lane. We also applied for a FEMA AFG, which is an assistance to firefighter grant. We asked for replacement of our SCBA's. The funding for that was $377,230, and we were not successful in obtaining funding through that grant. However, we've been working to find alternate funding sources to fund that project. And then finally, our city parcel project. That's another project that our community risk reduction manager spearheaded with our public works department. That was fuel reduction efforts of $39,000 on 6 parcels that the city of Auburn owns for approximately 7 acres and 5 right-of-ways for a total of 5,280 feet. All right, our third and final mission is public education. So our staff provided our community with 62 hours of public education in 2023. And some of the topics that were covered, but not limited to, were evacuation planning, home fire prevention, and wildfire prevention. We also utilized social media to reach out to various community members. So our Facebook and Instagram accounts reached nearly 5,500 individuals. And then the big public education event that was spearheaded by the fire department in conjunction with the Greater Auburn Area Fire Safe Council was the Stop the Embers event. And that next event will be May 17th through May 19th at the Auburn Home Show. And it's not a standalone event. It's a piece of the home show. And Lindsay Davidson has been coordinating again with various vendors and members of the Greater Auburn Area Fire Safe Council, and specifically Tim Monroe. All right, so I'll move in what I think is, in my mind, the most important aspect of our organization. It's our employees. So last council meeting, I brought then Fire Captain Matt Gell in front of you guys to discuss his receiving the 2023 Auburn Fire Department Firefighter of the Year Award. Since he was given that award, he's promoted to battalion chief. He started in the organization in August of 2021 and has assumed various roles in the organization, such as the equipment committee chair, EMS training and continuing education coordinator, county ops training and EMS committee member, CPR instructor, and a grant writer, to name a few. And he actually just completed another follow-up assistance to firefighter grant for a new Type 3 engine, and we requested funds for approximately $500,000. Hopefully we get it. The next employee I'd like to take a second to talk about is our top trainer, Engineer Justin Rendon. He is awarded this Top Trainer Award for his outstanding dedication to personal and professional development and completing over 500 hours of training in the calendar year. And just to put that into perspective, we're required to complete 240 hours of training. So Engineer Rendon completed almost double the amount of training that we require our employees to complete. I have stopped by the fire station and I frequently find Justin out with the new firefighters, teach, coach, and mentoring them and working on them, improving their knowledge, skills, and abilities. Promotion that we had in 2023 was James Murphy was promoted to captain. We hired him in August of 2021 and he quickly rose up through the ranks. He was promoted to engineer in December of 2021, shortly after he was hired. And he started working as an out-of-class fire captain less than a year after he was promoted to engineer. Prior to coming to the city of Auburn, he was a wildland firefighter for the U.S. Forest Service, working as both a hotshot and an engine operator, and brings a whole bunch of wildland fire experience to our organization. And then finally, we hired Zach Sloan just after the first of the year. He brings with him 2 years of firefighting experience. He worked at the Placer Hills Fire Protection District before coming here. And then he has approximately 4 years of EMS experience as well. He's working on obtaining his college degree and hopes to have a paramedic license in the future. So I talked about some challenges as it related to our fleet and facilities. Personnel is another challenge that the AFD has been faced with and has been discussed multiple times. And to kind of tighten that up a little bit, it's been focused, the discussions have been focused on recruitment and retention. So I have the unique perspective of coming up through the ranks in the organization, starting as a volunteer and working in every position in the organization. I've been watching and I've been exposed to a lot of conversations that most fire chiefs don't get included in. So if I was able to take all of that stuff and to put it into some categories, I would put it down into 3 categories: inconsistent staffing and deployment, aging fleet and facilities, and wages. And I would like to say that council has taken steps in improving the 3 issues that I just mentioned, and it's reflected in the amount of personnel that we lost in 2023. So in 2023, we lost 4 employees. We lost a battalion chief and a firefighter that left for other opportunities. And then we had 2 other employees leave for other reasons. And this is down from, we lost 7 firefighters in 2022 and 15 in 2021. I'd also like to mention that we've lost a total of 33 personnel since 2019. And just keep in mind that right now we currently have a staff of 20 full-time positions allocated to the department. And then finally, I want to take a second to talk about the Auburn Hook and Ladder Company, number 1. They are the 501c3 organization that supports the Auburn Fire Department. They are comprised of past Auburn Fire Department members, current Auburn Fire Department members, and various other members of fire departments in Placer County, as well as there are some people that have just volunteered because they want to assist the organization. And so the Auburn Hook and Ladder Company participates in various community events throughout Auburn, and what the events that they attend is what they utilize to raise the funds that they have used to support not only their organization, but put money back into the fire department. So last year they spent nearly $10,000 on the drone for us. So just a couple quick events that they sponsor is the annual roll call dinner every February. That's been going on for over 170 years. They do the St. Patrick's Day Parade, a 4th of July Parade and pancake breakfast. They support the co-op and the National Night Out, safe trick-or-treating, the Christmas tree lighting and Santa escort, and Country Christmas and clam chowder in Old Town, just to name a few. And then just because they don't get the opportunity to highlight the 2 people that they provide awards to, I'm going to just take a minute and bring that to you guys. So the 2023 Business of the Year selected by the members of the Auburn Hook and Ladder Company is the Auburn Grocery Outlet. And the reason behind that is anytime the Hook and Ladder goes out to those events, the Grocery Outlet has been more than supportive of providing food and drinks and all kinds of support to the event. So they were selected as the 2023 Business of the Year. And the 2023 Member of the Year is retired CAL FIRE Captain Dave Davis. And that was voted on by the membership and he received the award. And with that, that's the 2023 annual report. Thank you for your time and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much for your report. That was great. We really appreciate it. You did a great job on your first one.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions from council?
I have a couple.
Councilman Mark?
Hi, thank you. Great report. Appreciate it. So I just have a couple questions. You indicated, on page, item 11, 158, I don't know. Anyway, the emergency response, there's 33 structures, 6 were in the cities. And then you said for vegetation, 18, 3 in the city.
Yes.
So are we reimbursed? I mean, is that, then you go to the county, you went outside the city and do we get reimbursed when we go to these other structural fires and that kind of thing?
So the structure fire incidents, we do not get reimbursed for. The vegetation fire incidents, we do have some agreements that allow us to receive reimbursement. I believe in 2023 that we submitted to be reimbursed for 1 water tender deployment that
Okay.
went down into the Lincoln area for approximately 4 hours.
Okay. And so you said there's 33 structural fires that were outside, I mean, well, only 6 in the city and the rest were outside. So that would be in Placer County close by, is that it?
Yeah, anywhere that we have automatic or mutual aid agreements with the other departments in Placer County, I am not positive. I would have to look at the records. I don't think we left Placer County for any structure fire responses, but I would have to go back through the records.
Okay. And I'm not that familiar with some of your terminology.
Well, and I'll hold this up for you guys to see, and I see you struggling to look.
Yeah.
Our clerk has a very nice color packet for you that has everything that's easy to read. In there is this NEFRS National Fire Incident Reporting System breakdown of all the calls that we respond to. So that should line out any questions related to the incidents.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I could be looking on my computer, but I made some notes here. What does good intent mean?
I was gonna ask that too.
So, and I gotta have my glasses on. A good intent is falls under 7 different categories: dispatched and canceled en route, wrong location, no emergency found, controlled burning, vicinity alarm, steam or other gas mistaken for smoke, EMS call where the party's been transported, and a hazmat release investigation with no hazmat. And there's some subcategories under there, but those are the 7 highlighted areas.
That seems, there's a lot of those, and it sounds a lot like it's almost a false alarm in some regard. I mean, there's a lot of the good intent that we get, right?
Yeah, if I looked at our good intent calls at 443, 18.7% of them were good intent calls.
The other, you pointed out nicely, appreciate that. I really like your incident activity map. And you indicated that a majority of the calls seem to be north of Pacific Street. And again, where is Fire Station 2 then? That looks right.
So Fire Station 2 is about right smack dab in the middle, right in there.
Okay. And where's Fire Station 3?
Fire Station 3 is going to be, well, there's Sherland Track Road, so it's going to be right down in here.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. And then the other question is, oh, yes. So you gave a statistic with regard to total property saved and lost, and it was a pretty substantial number. Now, was this, again, countywide or?
So these are incidents that occurred within the city. When we respond out to these calls, we're the primary agency, the agency having jurisdiction. We report these values. If it's an automatic or mutual aid given where we go somewhere else, we're not required to enter that data so that there's not a duplication of that gets reported back to Maryland.
Good. Okay, thank you.
And so were you asking too, why the numbers fluctuate?
Yes.
Well, I don't have the exact numbers with me, but I'll just look at 2021 and that we talked about $25 million getting saved. Well, I can't remember if it's 21 or 22, but we responded to a commercial structure fire at the Auburn Airport.
Oh.
So it was a commercial fire and that's why those numbers are
incident will change
elevated.
it drastically.
Mhm. That's why I was saying that it's the type of fire, the location, where the fire extends to and what it consumes. So if it starts in one business, we would count that as the property lost. But if it extends in any direction into another business, then that property saved and lost value is going to increase.
Thank you. And yeah, your new technology, I really like the drone. Do we just have one drone?
The fire department has one big drone, and then we have a small drone that's used for training that's not as expensive. And then our law enforcement partners, I believe, have at least one drone as well.
Okay, good. And well, the drone was 10,000?
20,000, just shy of $20,000. So
The
the
hook
fire,
and ladder paid for that?
the hook and ladder company fundraised and paid for just under 10,000 and we paid for the other half. I think it was like $9,200-ish per party.
Great. And are you using it mostly for fire surveillance or how do you?
So it gets used for all kinds of different things. It has a thermal imaging camera, so it can assist with search and rescue operations at night. So it goes up and it can pick up heat signatures on people. It can help locate fires. Before, if we got a smoke report in the canyon, we would have to park the fire engine and do what we call tool up, put our safety gear on and grab our tools and start hiking to go find it. Now we can launch the drone and the drone can go and fly and see where the smoke is coming from.
Great.
And then we've used our drone for a whole bunch of other things as well. I can't remember if it was the police department's drone or our drone, but I know that we've been called out to assist with some police operations so that their personnel could handle their operation and we supported them with the drone.
Okay.
And we could do the same with them. If we're tied up, we could reach out to the police department and they could bring their drone out to help us out.
Good. Well, I personally really appreciate your report. You're doing an excellent job. It's very thorough and looks like you're really working hard and doing a good job for our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Sierra Salmon?
I think Councilwoman Amara asked all mine.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Hey,
You can think of one.
It means we're along the same lines. So that's good. No, my biggest question was the intent and how, and then maybe a follow-up, but I'll take a look at the report. Like what type of call would keep an incident in the good intent versus the false alarm?
Well, and that's what I was saying. It's
I'll
all,
take a.
this
I'll-
piece of paper is laminated next to our computers where the officers write the reports. And what they do is if it's not the standard, EMS call, they'll get this piece of paper out and find the best category that the incident fits that they responded to. So this is like their job aid to help them categorize the incidents.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Councilman Holmes?
Yes, I noticed there were a couple of months that were particularly active. I guess January was one, and there was another one in another slide that you had. Is it weather related or?
January, like I said, that was a severe weather and we responded to 51 incidents in 10 days.
I see.
And I would have to look at the other month that you're pointing out. I think that's actually in the printed copy that you're going to get. I don't
Okay.
have
All
that
right.
in my
Okay. Thank you.
presentation.
All right, and I just have a couple quick questions for emergency response, total incidents called by time of day. When it says the travel time, 3 minutes and 44 seconds, is there a range? Because I know some are probably closer to the station than the others. Like, can you get us the longest response time and kind of?
So that, like I said, this is an average. So
Yeah.
what we do is we filter our reports and we categorize our reports two ways. Code 2, which is no lights or sirens, and code 3, which is the emergency response lights or sirens. So the code 3 average travel time is 3 minutes and 44 seconds. Now, it could be as fast as 15 seconds if it's right next to the fire station.
Yep.
Or if we're on an incident in South Auburn off of Tyler and we have to respond to Incline Drive, it could be 7, 8, 9, 10-minute response time. It just depends on the traffic, the weather, the location of the resource, the experience level of the operator. There's a whole bunch of factors that go into that.
Okay, I was just curious kind of what that range was. And then you on here for simultaneous calls for service, 212. What happens when there's a simultaneous call? Like
As far, well, if we have
there's two at the same time, what do you guys do?
it just depends. If there's 2 pieces of equipment staffed, then they tone the first Auburn resource out and that engine goes and handles it. And then the second call comes in, they tone the second piece of equipment out and that call goes and handles it. There's been times that we've got 3 or 4 incidents. It doesn't matter. What happens is it goes to the closest resource agreement through automatic aid and they start grabbing the closest resources
Okay,
to
so
handle those.
if our two are busy, then it goes to another agency to provide that. as well.
Yeah, and we do the same. So I was just talking with our city manager about this morning. If we receive an automatic aid or a mutual aid response, we go every single time because we ask for that. So it's this for that.
We want to do mutual aid because if we help with a lot of buildings, but if there are a lot of our buildings on fire, we would want everyone to come and help us.
And it's every single fire department in Placer County cannot handle every incident by themselves, Roseville included, CAL FIRE, Placer County Fire. We all work as a team, work together.
Great, thank you for that. Oh, I was gonna ask a quick question on the drone. Is there, I know that there's certifications. Do we have our staff certified in drone driving?
Drone driving. Yeah. So we have 2 pilots.
There you go.
And I am not super versed in that area, but I know that we have Engineer Lawton and Firefighter Sims are both really into the drones. They both have their FAA 107 license, I believe is what it's called. And I think that license has to be recertified every 2 years. And then we also take that license and report it to our human resources department so that piece of equipment can be insured.
Okay, I just know it's not as easy as just getting a drone.
It's not.
Oh, okay. And then on, you put as one of the updates that's been done is diesel exhaust at Station 1. If we're not using Station 1, why are we making improvements to it and having to do with fire trucks being there when we don't have any fire trucks?
Well, so I can kind of talk about that in a couple ways. So the former fire chief purchased a diesel exhaust removal system because he had some plans of potentially moving some people around into there.
Okay.
So we purchased that piece of equipment, which
It was a previous plan.
yes.
Okay.
So we purchased it and it sat on the fire station floor for 6 months or however long it was.
Okay.
And then we put that piece of equipment in there. Just because we don't staff the fire station doesn't mean we shouldn't do what we can to get the diesel exhaust out. Diesel exhaust is a known carcinogen. And one of the byproducts of that is super cancer causing. And I actually just learned that one of the colleagues that I know, he had a little tumor that was caused by retired, but was caused by exposure to diesel exhaust.
So does diesel exhaust remain in a building even if there's no fire?
So up at Station 1, the only way there's doors in the very front of the building. And if you start a piece of equipment in there, the exhaust sits in the station and it will sit there until the air starts moving. So
But it's only needed when you have a piece of equipment on in there. It's not like
On.
something just that stays in a building. Like there's some things that remain in materials after the equipment is gone. But this is just only if there's equipment that's turned on within there that you would need it for.
yeah, so when you start the piece of equipment, the fan automatically turns on.
Okay.
Open the door, the fan turns on. It runs, you start it, there's a sensor, you pull out, the fan stays on for a set amount of time. And then as you drive away, that fan will run 3 to 5 or 7 minutes and then it shuts itself off. There's filters in there that have to be changed, I believe, biannually.
Okay.
And those are on a schedule. And then, you know, the other reason is we have the Hook and Ladder Company business meetings. We utilize that station for internal and external training. There are people in that fire station. It's just not fully staffed. So to get that exhaust out,
There's no fire engine when they're.
there's 2 fire engines in there.
They have a running fire engine in there when they're in there?
Well, it doesn't sit there and run, but there's 2 fire engines that are stored inside of that station currently.
Okay,
Yep. And then if we pull it out and go use it as a reserve or a backup or use it for training, whatever it is that we
Okay.
use it for.
so 2 of our trucks are in there right now.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't realize that. That was thinking.
There's just no staffing there. So when we utilize those trucks, we take our people up, grab the piece of equipment and leave. So going back to our update on our fleet, when we had our new engine come and it was getting all the equipment mounted to it, our newest old engine was the one that had the cracked subframe and all that stuff. That one was out of service. And then we had to grab the other backup engine, which was the 2005. With that engine went into service as well. That's why we can't just have one piece of equipment. If one goes out of service, we have to have the tools to continue to provide the emergency response to the community.
Thank you. That was all the questions I had. Oh, Councilman Holmes?
Yes, well, I want to thank you for such a complete report. Certainly enlightening. And I did want to point out that some of our firefighters, you in particular, have been involved in teaching other fire companies, fire departments, how to do their job. So
Yeah,
That's,
I think we were talking the other day. I've been an instructor at Sierra College and
yeah,
my passion is teaching driver operator courses.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that for almost 20 years.
yeah.
And if you were to look at my class rosters, you'd see there's a lot of people and not only Placer County, but the neighboring counties that attend those classes.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your report. I think since it's 7:30, we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back and do the police department report.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, wait, sorry, public comment. Sorry, before we go. Is there any public comment on the fire? I can always forget public comment. Is there any public comment on the firefighter or fire department report? Okay, then we're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Okay, Chief Canan, you're on.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members, Ryan Canan, the Chief of Police. Tonight, we will be talking about our Auburn Police Department 2023 Annual Report. And, just congratulations to my partner, public safety partner, for all the great work that they accomplished last year. And obviously to Chief Rogers as well for his promotion. So congratulations. So again, City Council, there's a ton of information in this presentation. It was included in the agenda, as well as I believe an email went out today with a more detailed brochure style catalog magazine that's got more of the information on there. So very high level, but I am proud to be here as well, just to highlight all the great work that the men and women in the police department have done over 2023. Done tremendous work, and you as a city council and certainly our community should be very proud of the work that they do. So 5 of the things that we focused on in our strategic plan: personnel, training, community outreach, employee wellness, as well as training and technology piece. Some of the highlights where we've been 5 years ago struggled with staffing, certainly on the sworn side. We came up with a model of bringing in reserve officers. Reserve officers allowed us to kind of spin our wheels through the hiring process and without taking up a full-time vacancy or full-time position. It could take anywhere between 4 to 8 months to get a police officer and a dispatcher or professional staff hired. And then you're talking about another 6 to 8 months of training on top of that. So it's important that we get those people in as early as we can. Community outreach was another big one. You can see there, we've attended well over 50 events, 20,000 followers on our social media platforms. We continue to do that outreach every day. And, it pays off for us. A lot of the work that the community, that our officers are doing, our dispatchers are doing, are actually, most of the stuff is actually never seen. So social media is a great tool for us. And our training for our employees, with a lot of younger employees, get them the experience and some exposure. We've got them over about 1,000 hours of training collectively, as well as focused on our fitness and employee wellness through a meeting with a licensed clinician and those wellness checkups. And you can see the column on the right, all the various staffing that we have. So crime statistics. So last year, not just we, but the state implemented what they called CYBERS. The nation had what they call NIBRS. California had to be different. So we used to do UCR, Uniform Crime Reporting. It was a summary-based reporting where it only highlighted the highest crime, the most prolific crime. Under NIBRS and CYBERS, they now track about 58 different crimes. Starting from the top left, so the officers collectively took 1,400 cases last year. And within those cases are the 636, what we call these stats right here: crimes against society, crimes against property, and crimes against persons. So 106, 285, 185 equals 636. We cleared 61% of those 636 cases that we tracked with DOJ. Through that, we had 669 arrests, 234 were felony arrests, 435 were misdemeanor arrests. But a stat right here we looked up while we're putting this presentation together. We broke up where our arrestees live with their residents. Just over a third actually live in the city, another third live in the county, and then just over 25% live outside of the county. So a lot of people are coming into the city of Auburn, and we're catching the bad guys and we're taking them to jail. So police officers, the patrol officers doing a great job out there. And then here you'll notice the crimes against society. Tracking this, you can see DUIs is one of those crimes against society that's tracked. So we had here, based on the way we report to CYBERS and NIBRS, we had about 134, which was an increase. And then our drug and disorderly conducts for arrests, we saw them decrease. And these are typically proactive type arrests. And then followed up with property crimes: arson, burglary is down, vandalism is down, person crimes, simple assault and aggravated assault. So the light blue is the arrests. So when you look at something like aggravated assaults right here, we had 39 aggravated assaults. We cleared 37 of them. And of those 37, we cleared 31 arrests. Simple assaults, we had 107 simple assaults. 84 of them were cleared, and 66 were cleared by arrest. Now, lots of numbers. Here's some more numbers for you. So calls for service. So we break up our calls for service and our proactivity 2 different ways. Calls for service is, this is a committed time by your patrol officers, your detectives, everybody. We're getting calls to go. So one of our top ones is actually alarm calls for service. You'll notice here we went to 476 alarm calls between burglary and robbery. 463 of them were false. 97% of those calls that we go to are false. And we spend anywhere between, probably, I think we guess about, or based on the stats, about 30 minutes per alarm. So that is a lot of time spent on something where most of the stuff is, checks out just fine. Welfare checks is another highest item. 452 welfare checks. Of those 452, 50 of those generated some type of call. 13 of them were generated for public intoxication or some type of health and safety code. 12 were informations. 9 were 5150 welfare institution codes, and then 3 felony warrant arrests. Parking is another one of our highest calls for service. And in that 347, we issued 60 citations. Most of those were parking without a parking permit. Some other highlights here is we talk about response time, like our partners in fire. Our priority one, our highest one, 846 priority one calls. It takes us an average time of 4 minutes and 24 seconds. And like the discussion with fire, there's a short period and then there's a longer period. I don't know what that looks like. Certainly could find out for you. Very similar. These are the averages that we pulled on all these different calls. And just like them, if we're tied up on something else, it's going to take us longer to get to some of these other calls. Officers will break, though. They'll leave one of these lesser priorities to get to the higher priority call. And then you can see kind of what all of our total incidences look like. This is a combination of calls for service committed time as well as our proactive efforts. A couple of years ago, we implemented this QHIT. This is our customer service citizen positive satisfaction score. And you can see there, again, I mean, we're sitting at 89% satisfaction score with the citizens that we respond to. So I think it's a pretty good number given what we do. I tell people we do not get invited to birthday parties. So officer initiated, this is the other half of those 21,000 calls. You can see here of these 13,527, this is the officer's time that they get to go be proactive. This is where incidents such as Placer High School a couple weeks ago, when the community asked about traffic enforcement. This right here is when the officers can change gears and go to those areas. Unfortunately, we can't be everywhere all the time, but this is the time they have to spend on that. And you can see the area checks, 6,800 area checks, 31% of our time is patrolling around looking for things. We're in the neighborhoods and we're looking for bad guys. Traffic stops, 3,194. Again, our second highest stat there. Officers are making a ton of traffic stops, business checks, or security checks. Councilwoman Amara, 550 hours of foot patrol.
That was going to be my question.
I just want to point that out. That's about one and a half hours a day. And then you can see some of those higher areas that we have there. Traffic enforcement. So we don't have a dedicated traffic team. The patrol officers are all assigned to run traffic themselves. You can see here, what do we got? So traffic citations, our stops are way up. Citations were about 167 issued citations. Almost half of them are based on moving violations. We have our reported collisions are down and our citations are slightly up, but you can see our primary collision factor is speeding. And then most of our 21 of our 88 or 21 of our, 115 collisions that we took are all on the Grass Valley Highway between Nevada Street and Lincoln Way, which wouldn't be a surprise. So that's where we are with collisions and traffic enforcement. Our POP team, again, our POP team is a dedicated team to do things that patrol cannot do because they have time on they have committed their time to calls for service. They're doing some other proactive work and a lot of the other things that take place. One of their highlights early on was we had a vandalism suspect going through some of the neighborhoods, breaking sprinklers and some of these other things. The POP team actually could dedicate time to put cameras out there, meet with the residents, meet with the folks who are involved in it and being impacted. And then they could work that case and ultimately they ID'd the guy, made the arrest. And they were able to do that because they had the time to focus on those things. And that's one of the reasons they're designed for that. Community engagement, they're at the community meetings, they're at business meetings. They essentially become, the face of the police department. And I know we have Sergeant Neary in the back, who's running that team. And then you can see here, the POP officer assisted in planning and overall security for the Festival of Lights, parade. POP has hosted multiple events at the PD. They just do a lot of work, and they become our liaison to some other outside agencies, SIU. They work with the DA's office. You can see here, Rockland PD POP, CHP POP, Placer County Probation, a lot of those different organizations. So they've essentially become the face of the department, like I said. Our homeless efforts. So about 5 years ago, we started on this journey with our 3-year strategic plan. We've kept that plan going, continuing to see the reduction in what we've identified as chronically homeless individuals. So at the end of 2023, we have essentially down to 19 individuals who identify as chronically homeless, not transients, not people who are just making their way through town, but people who, again, meet the definition, even though it changes regularly. So CSO Williamson, she came to us as a part-time CSO. We are very fortunate because she has a lot of experience through Health and Human Services. We talk about adult systems of care, and she is able to collaborate with county partners to get these people the resources that they need. Although it's a lot of what she does and most of what she does, it's not everything that she does. I know part of the conversation we were having a little bit earlier in the meeting, but you can see there, she and the team are about 560 incidents a year. And then code enforcement, we have one dedicated code enforcement officer for the city. Now, obviously, in many cases, certainly when it comes to weed abatement and those types of things, partner with fire on that. But you also see that they also do visitation and inspections at our tobacco retailer sites, our massage parlors, and a lot of those different issues we have here, like vehicles being stored on someone's property and whatnot. So they stay very busy, having one, especially with an older city, where a lot of our buildings haven't been maintained the way they should have been. So he stays pretty busy. Our SROs, so we have 2 school resource officers, one assigned primarily to Placer High, and then one assigned primarily to E.B. Kane. The work that they're doing, the relationships that they built at the schools is tremendous. Again, it's not something that you can quantify with numbers, but it's certainly, we know the difference. The school districts know the difference, and I think so do the families and the youth there. A couple of years ago, we started the Back to Zero campaign in partnership with the Health and Human Services. Over the last couple of years, we have found in partnership with the school districts that they have a better, they're capable of a better program to run the Back to Zero, which was citing youth for tobacco. They actually have an in-house programs. They're connected to the kids. It's probably a better fit. And so we're going to continue, how do we enhance that? And then you can see some of the cases that have happened at Placer High and E.B. Kane. Our dispatch and records crew, so we're slotted for 6 full-time dispatchers over the last couple of years. We've gone through some turnover with hiring people and then them not making it through training. And so we continue to hire. We spent most of last year with only 4 of our full-time dispatchers, and we actually need 5 at minimum to meet the criteria without creating a lot of overtime and extra work for the staff. You can see there some more numbers. 911 calls, the emergency line, and the non-emergency. So 30,000 calls for service, calls came in to dispatch. This here tells you how many seconds they were on the phone. So not the second that we answered it, but how long they were on the phone with each one of those. So you can see 2 minutes, more than 2 minutes, and there you go, almost 2.5 minutes for some of these calls. But what we do know is when we're answering our 911 calls, California's 90% of all the 911 calls shall be answered within 15 seconds. And our dispatch answered on average is 96%. So we're well above the industry expectations. And then cybers, which I spoke about earlier, we have to get certified through the state for this system. And it took us about, we said, a long time. And then after 3 months of testing, finally approved to go live in the system. That was definitely a kudos to that team that was able to put that stuff together. A lot of agencies struggled with it. I think some agencies still struggle with it, but we were able to get through it with the hard work with the staff. Here is some of the other things that people don't really see: PRA requests, report requests, citations, cases routed, cases to the DA, subpoenas. These are all this is the number of time we had to do each one of those. And again, it's not something you see. But each one of those, you can see here number wise, how long it takes each one. And then we multiplied that out. So we spent 132 hours last year handling these PRA requests. And it's a lot of paperwork. CID, or Criminal Investigations Division, 300 worked cases, 153 are new there. And you can see that there's a pretty significant increase. Our investigators arrested 167 folks. So they cleared some of those cases with 167 arrests. Exceptional means or were unfounded. Some highlights here. So of 100 suspected child abuse reports, we call a SCAR. These come in from a lot of different avenues, a lot of different folks will send these to us. Patrol officers may handle those SCAR initially, but then inevitably a detective will get that. And you can see here there were over 15 the MDIC interviews conducted relating to child abuse or child sexual assault cases last year. 30 ICAC. So ICAC is Internet Crimes Against Children. So we have 30 of those. The legislature and sometimes the courts do make our job a little bit more difficult. ICAC, these in particular used to be open source photos. So they came across another agency. That agency would send it to us and say, this is probably child pornography. The detectives could get that. They could start doing their investigation. Now, I think based on legislation and courts, I think we have to write about 4 search warrants. The detectives have to author 4 search warrants for each one of those cases. So again, adding time to their efforts. 28 death investigations, 36 missing persons. And then they've conducted human trafficking operations, prostitution stings, in partnership with POP and code enforcement. We've done the massage parlor operations. And again, some more stats on how much our property and evidence team brings in and the work that they do. Our volunteers, a true staple to the organization, couldn't do a lot of stuff without our volunteer program. We currently are at 18 volunteers. We have a great volunteer coordinator, Steffi, who has taken this role on, jumped in with both feet, and she's just running with our program. We're very thankful to have her. As well as we had a student intern from Placer High. He's with us right now. And then you can see where all the volunteers, a lot of the programs they do, live scanning, fingerprinting, records retention, washing our cars, the drug take back. I mean, just a ton of stuff. There are 29 different city events, help us out at the PD tours, the festivals. Our drug take back, we do it twice a year. You can see the number there, 588 in spring, 525 in fall. And then our live scan. I mean, the 2 volunteers, which a third volunteer is getting schooled up on how to do fingerprinting. I tell you that those people do not stop fingerprinting all day. Technology updates. So just circling back. So in 2022, we got approved for 6 cameras. These are the automated license plate reader cameras from Flock Safety. All the cameras were installed for the fiscal year 22-23. Currently, we got another 6 approved in this budget. 5 of those 6 are installed. One of the things we're up against is Caltrans. Shout out to Public Works for helping us get these things moving forward. And then 2023 ALPR cameras assisted in the arrest of 3 stolen vehicle arrests, assault with a deadly weapon, and then we picked up a PRCS, a post-releasable community supervision guy. And then on average, it scans about 19,000 plates. Another citywide program, School Park Reserve. So in 2022, ton of calls for service with going on down the School Park Reserve. In 2023, we installed the cameras, and what was 164 calls in 2022 were reduced to 61 in 2023. So having the technology is very helpful. Very similar to the Chamber of Commerce, we installed 1 camera, and we saw those calls significantly reduced as well. All 4 of these cameras are actually filtered back to the PD, so we can see these cameras live from our communication center. Like our fire partners, we too have some challenges with certain things. So in 2017, we began our body-worn camera program. We were one of the first agencies in the county to start a program. We initially were using the money from our risk management company. We used that money to start it, purchase new cameras, kind of just continue to maintain the program. Well, after 7 years, the system we were using, ViView, well, in 2018, it was bought by another company, but now they don't have the technology anymore. They don't service the cameras. We reached out to them this last go around. I think we got the last 2 cameras that were on their shelves. They actually dug them out from some back shelf room for us. So moving forward, we're anticipating essentially a cost about $125,000 for a new program. We've applied for grants to offset some of the associated costs. Body worn cameras they are here to stay. No matter what kind of community you have, pretty much every community expects our police officers to have some type of camera device on them. So we are at the end of life for that. Radio infrastructure in July 2022, we were informed that our current radio is at the end of support due to the aging infrastructure. Our maintenance vendor is permanently closed and is no longer available. We identified a course of action transition to Placer County Radio Network, which will require the purchase of new equipment, which includes 11 portable radios and 20 mobile radios. And those costs are approximately $261,000, as well as an annual maintenance cost increase to $49,000, which is about $30,000 more than we've been paying. And we too are looking at some grant funding as well as some other funding sources to help offset those costs. But these are certainly 2 costs that are very important, and they're here for us now. Moving forward, building repairs and maintenance. Again, similar to our fire partners. The building itself, the police department, it's an aging building. Unfortunately, it's not just aging, but a lot of the deferred maintenance has been deferred and has not been taking place like it should have. And now we're just dealing with problems literally as needed and based on emergencies. Then go in all the different reasons, hinders all of our stuff. I mean, our staff, water leaks, outdated electrical. Just on this one topic alone, I too thank Mangel and the Public Works crew, because when we talk about as needed and an emergency basis, they do show up. They help us out. I mean, I know some of his folks are actually babysitting a project right now at the PD, as well as, they're doing their best to figure out how to work through those deficiencies. We had a water heater go out. That took us a couple of weeks of no hot water at the PD, and only to find out that we had outdated electrical there, which required more of his staff to be there and working with contractors. So it's not a very good way of spending all of our time, but we know it's needed. We just have to find a way to start moving this stuff forward. And then technology, again, our expectation for the police department, I mean, technology is in everything we do. Many of our desktop computers are outdated. We did just purchase the mobile data computers, but those are the computers that go in the police cars. And so staff at the building, they too need their technology. And then you're looking at about 11 desktops, about $21,000. So we've done our due diligence. We've done all of our price checks, as we move forward in the next couple of months to have this discussion. But I definitely want to share some of our challenges with all of you. And in closing, we have challenges, sure, but we have a great staff. You have a very hardworking police department. You can see there the employees of the month. Our MAD award winners, Officer Bandia and Sergeant Davis. Officer Bandia also got the Rookie of the Year for MAD. CSO Williamson was the Elks Lodge Award recipient, and I believe we're going April 8th for that dinner. You can see some of the other awards there. Dispatcher Hodges on a 911 call. Her empathy and effective communication ensured a positive outcome for someone who's expressing suicidal thoughts. Another one with Dispatcher Hodges and Sergeant Almeida. Dispatcher heard shots fired during a traffic stop. The 2 officers quickly responded, finding the suspect was down, and provided life-saving measures until medical aid arrived. Our team, I talked about our Cal OES, how quickly we answer 911 calls. They all received the unit citation. Dispatch records went through their project with NIBRs and Cybers. Some life-saving, Officer Johnson, Officer Hopping, unresponsive male at the Rock Creek Care Center. They arrived, they found the patient in bed. They immediately started CPR. This quick action helped stabilize the patient until transported to Auburn Faith, ultimately saving his life. Officer Dorr and Officer Hopping responded to residents where they found a deceased female. They initiated CPR until fire and AMR arrived. I won't try to pronounce that, but one of the things about it is they were able to keep her organs viable for donation, saving lives nationwide, which is, I mean, that's a great story. That's amazing what they did. And then Senior Detective Adam Klein, Employee of the Year. Mentorship is investigative skills, organization prowess, and selflessness. You know, when it comes to being an investigator and knowing how to do that, he is looked up to by everybody in the organization for his efforts as an investigator. So, and that is the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. We appreciate it. Councilwoman Sarah Sammons, do you have anything? Since
Yes.
Councilwoman Amara took all your questions last time, I figured I'd start with you.
I only had one, because it was all very thorough. Thank you. So in looking at the very high number of the false alarms and knowing how much time it takes, are you, like say are we working with the businesses to see what can be done to reduce that?
It's a great question, and the answer is yes, we are. Elijah Keim, who's our code enforcement officer, we really started picking it up this year. I mean, before we would reach out to the businesses kind of when they really became problematic. But now we're proactively sending out letters when they get to so many alarm calls. And that way, what we found is just by making that call, letting them know, they typically fix it and it reduces that alarm call. So yeah, so we are trying to be proactive and get ahead of all that.
Are there fines associated with, like, say, excessive?
We certainly could get to that level. We can find people. We'd rather them fix it first.
Right.
But yeah, if we had to, we could get to that fine level.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Holmes, do you have some questions?
Yes, well, a number of years ago, before your time here, I think we had a captain's slot in there before the lieutenant. And is there any thought to having the captain slot put back in?
Well, I have the two lieutenants right here right now. They'd be chomping at the bit if I promoted them to captain. Yes. I think, again, to answer that question, by title, the two lieutenants are already doing captain's work.
Yeah.
They are, if I'm not here, they operate as the chief of police in my absence. They are representing us at all the different organizations. So they are already doing captain's work. I think unfortunately, I think it's a little bit of semantics because but if your answer is, do I want the captain's position back for title? Like I said, if they ever wanted to promote somewhere else, being a captain on paper is a lot better than being a lieutenant on paper.
Well, I think it was when it looked like the chief was going to retire, they made a captain's position to put somebody in there that potentially would be promoted to chief.
And that could be something that, we would look at working with the city manager and the city council moving forward. It certainly could be an option. I mean, we're fortunate we could be flexible, but I could see that might be a reason why they've implemented that back then.
Okay.
But certainly I can tell you, being a lieutenant and other organizations, having the title of captain is beneficial.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Great. Councilwoman Amara?
I do. So, the false alarms are alarming. Get it? Anyway, it's a high number, and my concern, is it mostly businesses, or is it residential, or is it
That is a good question. I don't have that.
What would it be?
I don't have that answer. I could tell you anecdotally, typically it's more businesses that have their alarms going off like that. And a lot of times it's for a myriad of reasons. The employee doesn't set it right, or someone shows up, doesn't know the alarm code. Especially when you start talking about the weather that we had last year, the wind will just inevitably set off alarms.
Yeah.
And
But
so those are
just
some of those
a lot
we
of
want to get ahead of.
time. It seems
It
like
is.
a lot of time.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking 463 calls. That's a lot of your calls. And my other question is, in your response times, you have priority 1, which I'm assuming is pretty major. That's 4.5 minutes.
Yes.
Is that pretty common among different jurisdictions?
Yeah, I don't have that answer, how we relate to other agencies. Sure, we could find out. I'm sure we could do a poll.
I'm just, it just seems like a long time to me. Does it to you? I don't know.
Well, unfortunately, it's the same thing, right? We're talking about an average.
Yeah.
So we could have had one that took us too long that changes up our average a little bit, but
And did you, I mean, has this average gone down or up in, you said in 23, 22, has it gone up or down over time? Do you know?
that I don't know, but my lieutenant's coming up right here.
I was just gonna point out, there's a distinction with the way we track our time. So
Yes.
for our response time, that's from the time of call to the time of arrival, not from the time of our response. And so that time starts with 911
Okay,
and actually taking and gathering the information. So I would say 4 minutes is definitely very competitive as to exactly where we fall with other agencies. We, like the chief said, we could reach out, but 4 minutes, and again, anywhere from across the street to the PD to out at the airport.
okay,
We're pretty confident and comfortable with those numbers.
good. Okay, thank you. And,
And that was Lieutenant Huey,
thank you, sir.
who does all my stats.
Oh, then, thank you. I appreciate the statistic on the, foot patrol, an hour a day.
About an hour and a half-ish a day.
Very good. Excellent. I'm happy with that. Is that primarily in town or neighborhoods or, can you expand on that a little bit?
I couldn't give you anything in detail. I know a lot of it is spent in Old Town and downtown,
Okay,
but then I know we spend a lot of time in our parks, the airport, those types, a lot of places.
and, now I understand the DBA had purchased, bikes. I don't know if they're bicycles or e-bikes, and I've frequently asked about what's happening with those bikes. And do we have a officer bike program coming up?
So they did purchase the bikes for us. We do have 3 of the mountain bike style pedal bikes and not the e-bikes. Last year, we hosted an e-bike training,
Mhm.
but we do have a number of officers who are bicycle certified. And so certainly with Sergeant Erie back here and our POP team, and some of our other officers, we'll get some people out in spring and summer.
Great, good. I did
But-
see Officer Neary, out there. Good job.
That way I
Anyway,
can put a stat that says
thank
bike
you.
patrol 550 hours.
And so the POP team, it sounds like they're very productive. And so a lot of it is also preventative that they do their work.
Yes.
Okay. And are they the ones that go to the schools? Are they the resource officers or are those different?
So they're 2 different units. So our school resource officers are primary at the schools.
Okay,
Where POP is in everything. Like I said, they work with the SROs. They'll work with our allied agencies on the different, projects and issues that come up.
so they're not really dedicated to one thing.
They're dedicated to everything. Yeah.
And on the homeless effort, it looks like you're doing a wonderful job. Are we seeing an increase in transients though, coming through town?
Not that's been really reported. We always have people coming through. We have the train station. And so we get a number of people at the train station and the bus station will get dropped off. We also see people coming from unincorporated Auburn. That's where the jail is when they get let go. So we do see a number of people and we always have since I've been here.
Okay,
That's why we always had to separate the 2 between transients and
not
true
necessarily an
chronically homeless.
uptick though in transients.
I haven't, it would be a question for some other folks.
Okay. And and just on that same vein, dog incidents, do we get any dog bites and that kind of stuff? Do we have any of those kind of?
So we do get them. I couldn't tell you the answer though.
Okay. Just trying to show everything you do here. And so, so the school resource officers, they were part-time. Are they still part-time?
No, they are full-time. We have 1 grant that pays for 1 school resource officer and the other one is a funded position that is at Placer High.
Great. So they're on campus all day long?
They're primarily on campus, so they spend most of their day there.
Okay,
They're not there. They'll have to leave. They might help something else, another call or come back and have to write the reports, but typically they're assigned to the schools.
Okay. And it's Evie Kane and Placer High School.
Yes.
And
And you can see we do have spent some time at Sky Ridge. So
oh, okay.
Mhm.
The last one is, the last question I have is, you said cameras are helping with regard to the school park preserve, and is that because you're viewing the situation and go down, or what?
but I think this is kind of a SEPTED, right? Crime prevention through environmental design. The
Mhm.
kids know we have cameras down there.
Okay.
They know where all three of them are located. They know what they're looking at. And so now the reality is we've reduced problems there because less kids go there to hang out and cause problems.
Okay.
And so we've seen that reduction
It's a
primarily through that.
deterrent then.
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I really appreciate this thorough report and everything you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess it's my turn. All right. Let me go back to, I'll start back at kind of the beginning again too.
All right.
So I'm not going to talk about the fact there's too many calls on alarms, but I was just wondering, since I don't really know off the top of my head, the difference between burglary and robbery. Can you just define
So
those two? for me?
burglary is definition is essentially when you're say breaking into a building with the intent to commit a theft,
Okay,
right? Or some other type of felony.
okay,
Robbery is when you use force and fear to commit a theft or some type of theft, right?
okay,
So those are two, there's violence associated with one, not necessarily violence associated with the other.
so it's kind of the
But if
same.
you're breaking into your home, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I'm not totally off that they're kind of related, but have a.
Kind of related, but
have a
yes.
Different definition. Okay,
So, yeah, robbery is typically like your bank holdup alarms.
okay,
It's gonna be a robbery alarm because it's happening now and tied into the force and fear type of it.
okay,
Burglary alarm is just something you set at night, and when it goes off, typically someone's breaking into
okay,
a
Got it.
door, a window, those types of things.
okay. Same thing with multiple calls. When there's 4 or 5 things happening, do we have any mutual aid type situations, or do we just have to pick the most urgent thing and go to that and deal with the other ones when they come?
Yes to all of that.
Okay.
So we do have the option for a mutual aid. We rely on that just like our partners at Placer County at the same time. And then there's sometimes though, if we're at some type of call, like if we're at alarm call and we know it's, false and we get another call, we're going to clear that call right now.
Okay.
Or if it's a lesser priority and requires only one officer at the time because everything is okay,
Okay.
another officer will clear and respond to that call.
Okay. But if you're overwhelmed, you could always call Placer County Sheriff and get help, or
We could,
you normally
Placer County Sheriff's Office, CHP.
CHP. Okay.
So we're fortunate we have a lot of good partners.
Okay, great. I was just wondering, how are things going out at the airport? Are we seeing a lot of activity out there or issues and calls, or is it just generally patrolling? I've heard some incidences out there.
It ebbs and flows. It could be like right now, I think we're working on a traffic problem on Earhart. So it will always ebb and flow. And earlier in last year, we were also dealing with some homeless encampments that were being put up. So we would respond to that, take care of it, and then we'd leave, come back to something else. So we do stay busy out there, but most of our efforts, I think, are just extra patrols and the area checks out there being seen.
I've also heard a lot of folks out at the airport who are happy that CHP is out there, because they have their office there, it makes it so if there is something really urgent or just people seeing them around, makes it so that there's maybe a little bit more deterrence than if you didn't have
That's
them out.
absolutely true. It's anytime you see a police officer, it doesn't matter whose jurisdiction, nobody knows what jurisdiction it is. So yeah, so we're fortunate. We have good partners at CHP in Placer County.
Great, thank you. Here's a kind of a strange one. I see a lot of things about lost dogs and them being brought to your office. Is that something that we spend a lot of time on? Is there anything we should be doing about that?
So it does happen quite often. Actually, it's slowed down a little bit now that we have Bolo. But I could tell you that this is where this pays off. We know we pay Animal Control, Health and Human Services a contract. This year, I don't shared it with my boss directly yet, but we had a significant decrease in our animal control costs in the next 2 years with the contract. So by doing that and not taking the dogs or the animals directly to the shelter where they stay for a long period of time, we save money as a city.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of posted on social media. Hey, have you seen, do you know who this one belongs to? And so just curious.
And usually we get them back to their owners.
That's great.
So it works out.
That's great. Sorry, it was like random, but I just have noticed that a lot. Along with the homeless effort, there's a lot of people like to talk about it online and not tell you all that there's a issue or somebody who's taken up residence in town. Sometimes when I say, hey, have you called PD? They might be able to provide some resources. They don't always get a yeah back. I get interesting responses. What is the way that you would recommend that people, if they do see a new person who's taken up residency in a part of town, that they would handle that situation?
Call us, call our non-emergency number, let us know what they're saying. And I've shared that mentality since I've been here. I don't expect everybody to know what is going on or what isn't going on. And so by calling us allows us an opportunity to take a look at it, but also that person might not be the first person to see it or experience it. And so the more data we have, the more information, the more of a path forward that we can take, because someone doing something once typically isn't going to cause any alarms or problems. But when we start seeing it collectively, certainly we want to get the people the resources they need. If they can't do it on their own, sometimes we have to help make them. And we have tools for that. And so the more people that call us and report it, the more we can do something about it. And then at the same time, we have limited resources. So the more data we have, we now can say, see, this is our problem right now. This is where we need to go.
Okay, great. Thank you. The other question around homelessness, how do you handle people who are living in vehicles? And I've seen multiple things about random vehicles being kind of stationed around town occasionally. And there's homeless, and then there's people who are underhoused, or however you want to describe it, who are either couch surfing or living in vehicles. And how do we normally respond to
Yeah.
vehicles?
So to your point, I mean, there's a lot of people who couch surf who are unhoused, right? But they're not living on the streets.
Yeah.
So those people are typically the ones we won't deal with and everything else. But the ones in the cars, again, right? It's getting them in the services. They can't park in certain places. They can't live in their cars. There's certainly a safety caveat, right? If someone's driving for a long time and needs to sleep, I think ours is 4 hours that they can sleep in their car for rest. But after that, they need to go find some type of shelter, whether it's a hotel. And this is where Kathy comes into play, and Health and Human Services. We can get vouchers. I certainly get people the resources they need, but you can't be living in your car, your RV. We always see what the bad stuff that happens as a result of that.
Okay, great. In regards to schools, as we transition to K-8 and EV Kane won't be the middle school, have you thought about how you're going to be changing how the school resource officers are handled?
So right now it's the one that's primarily handled, the EV Kane. We haven't talked about it in great detail, but it's probably going to be split. Her time will probably be split between those two schools.
Okay. Curious. Around records, public records requests, we had an issue before about records retention. Have we mitigated that issue?
Yes, we have. So many years, we had paperwork stored in, the banker boxes and everything else. Since we went to our new CAD RMS system, RIMS, Samantha Davis, which our record supervisor, and her team put together a great effort to get those things cleaned up, moved on, everything else. All of our data since mid 2020 is all electronic. I think we go back to about 2017 that we still have, which is well within our records retention. But yeah, we got all that stuff caught up.
Okay, great. Because if we keep stuff too long, then we can be asked for a very big request.
Yes, which is
we had a gun buyback program a year or two. I can't remember how long it was been. 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Has there been any interest in doing another one of those, or?
We haven't had any interest come to us from the community at all.
Okay.
So if they are, then we'll do it. If not, then we'll stay status quo. But along that, people, many people didn't know at the time that they could bring guns to the station for us to take from them and book as safekeeping or found or to be destroyed.
Okay.
So it didn't require the gun buyback process to do.
Okay, and it's still anonymous and all of that stuff the same way. Okay, great. Let's see. Around cameras and technology, is it possible for the schools had asked, is it possible for schools or others to buy cameras that then integrate with our systems for us to have a better.
Yes,
system
so
overall.
Flock Safety, actually, I believe that's how they started, was actually selling their cameras to HOAs and different groups. And those cameras then get tied back into their local law enforcement.
So if someone's interested in doing that, would they contact you?
Yes.
Okay.
I would start with Lieutenant Huey, though.
And then now that there's not as many kids hanging out in School Park Preserve doing things they shouldn't, are they doing things they shouldn't in other parts of town? Because kids don't just stop doing things they shouldn't. So I was just curious. I was just curious if they dispersed themselves to other places and we're still having problems.
Well, thankfully, the studies show that displacement isn't one for one. So I'm sure the kids are other places. But nothing's come across my desk that make it the crazy outlandish like the School Park Reserve was.
Okay, great. That was all I had. Oh, and I understand the issue. I understand the issue with all of our facilities being old. It's what happens when a city takes over old school facilities rather than building their own. So I think that we should talk about how we want to deal with our facilities, possibly as part of the strategic plan. I know that the same goes for PD as well. Historic buildings are great, but challenging to work in and challenging to maintain. So that should be something that we talk about as a group when we're doing our strategic planning on how much maintenance we're having to do and what the best fit is for all of our departments. I appreciate you
Agreed.
bringing that to our attention. Thank you. That's all I had. Any other questions? Okay.
And in full disclosure, for the fire department, my son did graduate the fire academy in December last year. So kudos to our fire department. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item? Oh, can you come up to the microphone? Because we record it and thank you.
I'd just like to compliment the city council and fire department and police department because I think you do a beautiful job. I'm so proud of the city of Auburn. And one thing I've noticed because I've seen a lot of different cities in this country, you don't see blight. There's so many cities I've been to Boise and all over. And I just feel the city of Auburn, for whatever reason, if it's due to the city council or police, but I'm so proud of the city and I have to ask, so what do you do with the homeless here? I'm just curious.
What do you do for 3 minutes?
Well, I will start off by saying we do not kidnap them. That was a request about 5 years ago. So to your point, thank you for asking that question. Really it just comes down to getting them services. We talk about the homelessness all the time, and people become homeless for a wide variety of reasons. Some people choose it. Some people, unfortunately, it happens to them. And I think a big part of that is when the stars align, those people will be ready to get services. But it's when it's from constant contact. It's, we talk about our CSO who's out there, our officers that are out there. Every time we get a call and we get an opportunity to connect with somebody, offer them those resources, maybe that's the one time that they're clean and they're sober and they realize that, I don't want this lifestyle anymore. I will go with you and get the services. And so it's just finding that right time. And that's really where we found our greatest success, is that frequent, high touch part of that community. So hopefully that answers your question. But Health and Human Services, again, great partner of Placer County, certainly doing a great job over there.
Thank you for that. We were actually having a conversation today about our branding effort about how we just have so many nice pictures to use that it's going to be hard for us to choose. And a lot of cities don't have that problem, that they just don't have. They have to kind of work around their different areas that have blight or other problems and try to highlight certain areas. But we've got so many nice areas to look at Auburn, and that's due in part to PD, in part to fire, in part to our public works department. This whole city really works together, and it's a big part. It's our community too, because our community really values our city, and so they all work together to keep it looking nice. And so we appreciate everyone for working together. Is there any other comments? Any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to city manager report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just quickly, last Friday, staff sent a letter to all the property owners and businesses within 500 feet of the proposed Old Town ARPA Washington Plaza project to gauge their reaction to making a 1-block section of Washington Street a one-way street. So the reason for that is because that street's already substandard road width is already a substandard width road. So installing a 24-foot wide 2-lane road through the new plaza only to get choked down to 15 feet causes logistical problems, obviously. So we're hoping to hear back from the Old Town business folks before the close of business on April 1st. Jonathan tells me that's not a joke. April 1st is what we're shooting for with that. That'll help to inform staff on what the next step will be in the plaza design process. School Park Preserve multi-use area, so the pickleball courts. That project has commenced with the installation of all erosion and sediment controls being installed, and the tree protective measures have been put in place. Also temporary construction fencing up in the affected portion of the park to keep people from walking and wandering into the construction area. The asphalt demo is set to start next week, with all construction activity set to end in late May. ARD is the project manager of Auburn Recreation District's project manager with city staff supporting as necessary.
Sean, I have a quick question on the pickleball courts.
Yes.
Somebody brought to my attention or just asked the question of what bathrooms are they going to use? Because I don't think there's any bathrooms in School Park Preserve. Am I right? So, yeah, that's right.
Right.
So if we're encouraging people to be down there for extended periods of time playing sports, they're going to need restrooms. So how are we addressing that issue?
That's a good question.
We discussed it at our meeting. We discussed it at our meetings and we can't afford a restroom. So at regional, they use a porta potty, but you know, I don't know what the plans are. People are
it's-
very aware.
Maybe it's a
that-
take it back and think about it situation. I don't
Yeah,
know. It's
yeah, well-
just, if we're gonna have, and the same goes with public events and things like that. If we're trying to, I mean, I know when we do like Symphony in the Park, we have porta potties. I don't know if we want 24/7 porta potties in the
No.
park that we have to maintain. So
Right.
just food for thought.
Yeah, all right. City will be hosting nationally recognized downtown revitalization expert Michelle Reeves in May. She'll be working to assist Old Town and Downtown Auburn, the two districts, with placemaking improvements, retail execution, sales per square foot improvement within each district, as well as how to cross-pollinate between the two to drive more traffic to both districts. The goal in those is to assist those two areas with within their current borders, incorporating present efforts at economic improvement and providing opportunities for continued momentum building. So that work's going to happen over 2 in-person trips and will include several meetings in each district, and then one wrap-up presentation that will provide findings and takeaways applicable to each district. We hired Michelle 3 different times in Loomis, and so a lot of the work that happened downtown along Taylor Road was informed by the work that she did with me there, and we basically just implemented the stuff that she told us to do. It's one of the reasons why Taylor Road was kind of on this like revitalization program. So really looking forward to having her come to Auburn.
What's her last name? Sorry.
Reeves, Michelle Reeves. She works for her company's called Civilis Consulting, I think.
Okay.
And then Public Works is reintroducing the Healthy Auburn Waters event, collaborating with Sky Ridge Elementary School, PCWA, Recology, and city staff to educate students on various aspects of water, ranging from consumption to the overall operations of a watershed. That this event hasn't taken place since before COVID started. Be reinstated on April 22nd, coinciding with Earth Day. So we'll make sure to get information on that. And then finally, we're still working on the resolution to the underground storage tank issue that we discovered on High Street about a couple weeks ago. We've put a hold on the sewer infrastructure project in that area, and we're actively searching for a solution, working with the county and with the adjacent property owner there. Right now, we're working on mitigating the impact on the local businesses. If you look, those 2 businesses there, it looks like they're basically closed because the sidewalk is blocked off. And so we're trying to work out a potential solution as much as we can by, at the same time, also protecting public safety. So we're continuing to work on that. That's all that I got. I can answer questions if you have any.
Are there any questions for the city manager? Okay. Councilman Holmes, do you have anything to report for the city council committee report?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Uh, Yeah, I've been working with some of the property owners in Old Town. And as you may be aware that several businesses have already closed there. And one proprietor is planning to retire. And so we're going to work together to see what we can do to improve the business climate down there. And I'm a little bit, well, I'm disappointed about the Old Town Business Association because they don't seem to be as active as they used to be. And so hopefully we could move that along.
Councilwoman Sarah Sammons?
Yes, as I'm the liaison for ARD, I thought I'd help them out by just reiterating their message is that even though right now we've got some pretty decent weather, when it's raining, please adhere to the signage, the messages on social media, the websites. If the bike park is closed, it's closed. If the dog park is closed, it's closed. People that think, oh, well, it's just me and my dog or me and my one bike, I'm not going to cause that much damage. The fact is, those people do. It causes monetary damage. It causes time, a longer period of time for the fields or the bike park trails to be repaired. So just doing my part to help our partners at ARD. So when the weather's bad, stay home or visit the parks that don't have the restrictions or are open. That's it.
Okay, great. Councilwoman Amaro.
Yeah, thank you very much. I attended a traffic committee meeting and that was just the general plan update by Barry was given, but there was emphasis on traffic and it was, there's a lot of discussion on making Auburn walkable. That was a very predominant theme from the traffic committee. Then there was the, I wanted to point out, I liked our letter to the postman for the station down in Old Town. Very good letter. Thank you. And sustainability had a meeting. Their meeting was a couple of things. Well, first of all, we all are very aware, I'm sure, of the Canyons race coming up end of April, Saturday and Friday and Saturday, April 27th, 28th. But also that day will be the Hip Hop Congress they're going to have at the School Park Preserve all day. They'll be having kind of earth theme. And sustainability will have a booth there. Also the Make Auburn More Friendly Bike Kickoff Month. They're going to have an event May 2nd at the ARD gym from 4 to 6. So there'll be a table there from it's a nonprofit bike organization that'll be there. So go there and learn a lot about bikes. Kick off that month. Support your bikes in Auburn. And then there was a lot of discussion on the landscape in front of City Hall. That's coming along. The individual in charge of that particular activity, Joe Looney, is going to meet at Loomis to see what they've done at the library down there. And he's working with PG&E to get grants. And he's starting to do some preliminary designs. And as we all know, any government agency will be required to have a drought resistant landscape by I forget the exact date, another year or two. So we're ahead of the game on that in that regard. We also, there was a discussion on, of course, e-waste and Anyway, that kind of stuff. But also, B-Cycle is going to, they've submitted a preliminary report on, in terms of liability and if they came into our town, and our city manager is looking at that along with hopefully legal. And then that may come back to just introduce and have everyone have an understanding what B-Cycle would be in our town. And finally, there was, let's see, next meeting will be on April 16th, and that was basically it there. And then Downtown Business Association. Oh, I do want to say, shout out to our staff, especially Jonathan, who's working very hard with the Melinda from Remedy. They're very pleased with the amount of work and support that they're getting in regard to their project, Remedy Uptown. And by the way, they do have a contract. They will still be in Old Town. Poor Choice will be there still. I was told they weren't going to be, but anyway, so really a big shout out. They're very grateful. And I really like hearing that we're working with people to help bring about business in our town. And so anyway, the DBA talked about the Canyons race. And again, I indicated that's at the end of April. So go, it's really going to be a phenomenal event and an opportunity for businesses in our town, and for individuals who can house people to come in and stay in our town so that they can go to frequent our businesses and help in that regard. Because right now, the last few years, they've been staying elsewhere because there's not enough hotels around. I mean, people come from all over the world for this Canyons race at the end of April. And then there was a cruise night presentation, and they're working very hard. Will be continuing. Then Jackie Weston gave a talk, and Leadership Auburn gave a talk. They have a lot of upcoming events. There's a lot of course, mixers, luncheons, and they talked about their leadership program. They're very, their project this year is signage, I think. What? Oh, yes, a trail around. Pretty cool project. They're going to have a little trail where people can walk around town. And then, basically there's beautifying projects in town. We have there's the daisy, the daffodils. And then that's it. There'll be a spring festival perhaps. Oh, and it's an event called the Friday Night Out. So April, do you know when that starts? The Friday Night Out? June. Okay, everything's in June. So there'll be businesses will stay open later. So if you get an opportunity in June, try to go. And each business will have kind of a theme and try and support staying open later on Friday nights through the summer. And that was it, basically. So that's all I have to report.
Great. Okay, I'll try to keep mine quick. Met with the head of GSEC, with Jonathan and our city manager, just to talk about their impacts on Auburn and how we can work better with them and opportunities to work together. So that was a great meeting. Went to a event on economic and social impacts of nonprofits, arts and culture in Placer County. And they had a really interesting statistic that in 2022, there was $13 million, well, $26 million spent together. Half of it was for organizations and half of it was audiences. And a lot of people came into town to spend money. And so they were just talking about how much money is brought into the county just based on art and culture. So it was a great presentation. The League of Cities, I went to a meeting last Friday in Loomis, and we went to the High Hand Nursery and got a tour from the owner of High Hand. That's a really cool, if you haven't gotten to tour it and get the background on it, really has a great history to it. And it was really interesting to listen to that. Cap to Cap is coming up in the middle of April. So I think it's Mike and Alice and I that are all going to be going out to DC. And that's all that I had. All right. If there's nothing else, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Well.
I